Yes! Welcome into SportsBIT. Betting Insight today, Paulie and Teddy. Wednesday, September 20th, big game breakdown. 2 ESPN games. Thursday, South Florida and Temple. Friday on the Deuce, Boise and Virginia. Deep dive, we'll talk about the horrendous start offensive play in the NFL. Got some numbers to back it up. And we look to stay red hot with the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. And we'll get to some win totals, as a lot of these have been graded already in Major League Baseball. This was a horrible beat. Angels, Indians total, 8.5, bet down to 8. In any event, it's 3-1 in the bottom of the 8th, and it goes over as Norris gives up 3 in the top, and Upton hits a homer in the bottom of the 9th. Also a horrible beat because to the Angels Baseball Foundation, as Sherman Williams was supposed to give $1 million if a home run ball went in the Sherman Williams paint can. The home run went in the can, it bounced. They say no good. It's supposed to land on the fly. Get out of here. Horrible all the way around.
Yeah, really. All right, let's start with the bettors. Forget Sherwin Williams for a minute. You can make all kinds of complaints about whatever corporations you want to. This was a tough beat. You know, bet from 8.5 down to 8. All right. It's 3-1 in the bottom of the 8th inning. You know, Clevenger was a brilliant last night. Skaggs was just as good. You know, but then Brian Shaw, Cody Allen both give up runs. We're talking about top-notch relievers. And then Bud Norris with the 9th inning disaster for the Angels. Yeah, bad beat for the $1 million in the paint can. Bad beat for the bettors who had the under in this one. They got a really tough loss with the Angels Indians under.
Yesterday was a big day for the books. The players did not do well, so let's run it down with a lot of bad bets. The Rays, in what was a home game for the Cubs, Cubs fans took over Tropicana. Madden goes back to Tampa. It was Montgomery against Archer. Tampa went from $1.15 to as high as $1.55. One hit, Teddy. One hit the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery was pretty brilliant. He allowed one base runner for Mike Montgomery allowed in that contest. The Cub bullpen behind him, every bit as good. And when you start looking at these, the way it's setting up for the postseason in Chicago, I'm not going to say they've been overlooked, but it's been the Dodgers getting all the headlines in the NL, and the D-backs got hot, and the Nats, meanwhile, here's Chicago, defending champs, playing some decent baseball down the stretch. They were the good result last night from what was a bad bet on Tampa.
Well, this was a 1-0 final, but I don't know why they're betting the Pirates. Plus $1.15 went off the favorite. They've lost 7 in a row, and they haven't led during that streak. It's like 69 innings.
Yeah, it's insane. I can't understand why the money's come for Pittsburgh. And it's come for Pittsburgh repeatedly during this 0-7 skid. They haven't led at any point in any game, not 1-0, not anything, during this 7-game losing streak. Pirates took money. Yeah, that was a bad bet.
Look at this one. Bad bet and a bad beat. The Mets, plus $1.45, down to plus 120 in some spots. They led 4-1 in the bottom of the 9th. Ramos allowed 6 of the 8 batters he faced to reach base, and they blow it. Marlins win in extras.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't, we talk about why are the Pirates taking money? Why are the Mets taking money? There was a bunch of money on the Mets last night. I can't explain it. They certainly haven't played good baseball. Well, I mean, it was kind of a bad beat when you consider that, came down to Ramos blowing the save, but the Mets are not a team that I'm excited about putting my money on down the stretch. Bettors were last night, and bettors paid the price as a result.
Pomerantz against Gossman. Total was 8.5 up to 9, 1-0. Red Sox win on a wild pitch in the top of the 11th. 1-0. That's the final score. Pomerantz has been terrific. Top 6 in ROI.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a slugfest between these two teams on Monday. And then on Tuesday, nothing into the 11th. Bettors thought the game was going to go over. 8.5 bet up to 9. Yeah, that was a bad bet. Books cash another one. Most of the big decisions went well for the house last night.
Yep. Here's another play of the day winner. We told you the Yankees owned the Twins, and it was a matchup of the bullpens, complete mismatch. That happened as well. Yankees $1.35 up to 165, 175 in some spots. CC pitched well, and Barrios only lasted 3 1/3. He threw 90 pitches. Had to get out of there early.
Well, what if you're watching SportsBIT, you knew what was going to happen in this ballgame. We warned you about Barrios and his home road splits right here on SportsBIT yesterday. There was not much in the tank for him last night, as you mentioned. Could have been a lot worse. He had 9 runners reach base in that 3.1 innings. Only 3 of them came around to score. And remember, if the Twins weren't still holding on to the wild card, Brios might well be shut down for the season right now. He's a rookie they want to protect, but right now in the midst of a pennant race, they have to roll the dice with his future.
All right, week 3 already. NFL early week line moves. There's money on the Bears. I don't understand that against the Steelers. The Denver money, I understand. Nasty defense. Blowout win against the Cowboys. They take on the Bills on the road. Bills have had all kinds of problems scoring. Titans and the Seahawks make sense. I agree with that one. Seahawks offensive line's a mess. Struggled to only scored 1 touchdown so far on the season. And the Bengals, Bengals taking money against the Packers. Packers have injuries, offensive line, check the status of Nelson, and they figure, okay, Zampese fired, Laser takes over, new OC, put up or shut up time, season on the line for Cincinnati Sunday.
Yeah, what you're going to see in the marketplace this week, you're going to see some love for the 0-2 teams. And this is a normal, predictable reaction from the wise guys betting on teams where, all right, season's on the line right here, right now. You start 0-3, you don't make the postseason. If you're 0-2, you still have a shot. So not that the Bears are all that good or going to make the postseason. I think there's some anti-Pittsburgh sentiment in that one. And I'm a little bit surprised. Well, I guess the Bills are 1-1. But normally you see a team coming home off of a loss and you're going to take money. But Denver's certainly been a team that has attracted significant betting support early. But you talk about the Seahawks, the market's not liking Seattle. Certainly the wise guys don't like Seattle so far. The one that surprised me a little bit, Redskins took money. The Raiders opened 3.5 on the road. That's been bet down to 3. Oakland's going to be a public team. Oakland's going to attract a lot of attention this year from bettors. Certainly coming off back-to-back spread covers to open the season. I would have thought that line more likely to hang at 3.5 or 4. The early week bettors said Washington should take the money, and they did. Raiders currently -3 on the road for Sunday Night Football.
Well, good luck there. That's the 3rd straight game where some sharps have been betting against the Raiders. MLB Win Total updates. We'll run through these rapid fire. A lot of these already decided. Some will still come down to the final 11 games. Winners: Diamondbacks, Dodgers, Twins, Rockies, Padres, Yankees, Nats, Astros, and Indians. Some of them not even close. Easy winners. Losers: Texas, White Sox, Cubs, Phillies, Seattle, Pirates, Mets, Giants, Toronto, and Detroit. Oakland and Atlanta in trouble. And in the balance, Boston, St. Louis, Baltimore, the Angels, Tampa, Miami, and Cincinnati. Which, what's funny? You had a great, good line, Teddy, in April that the Indians would probably have to win 110 or 105 games to make money. Well, the Indians have won 25 of 26, and they have, 94 wins? Plus 5 units on the season, Teddy.
Yeah, it took, I think, they win 21? Did they lose the 22nd game? I forget now. But it took until about game 19 of that Indians winning streak for them to reach profitability for the season because of the big prices you had to lay with all of those Cleveland starters. But again, we have the overs, and a lot of those, as you mentioned, were easy. The unders, where you talk about teams like the Rangers and the White Sox. The one I'm rooting for is the A's. We talked about Oakland and Atlanta haven't cashed the unders yet. We expect it to come over the course of the last 10 days of this season, but hanging in the balance, you got the Red Sox over-under, you're biting your fingers. The good cards, Orioles, Angels, Rays, Marlins, and Reds, they're all bouncing within range of the number. Those are going to be fun to sweat over the last 10 days of the long MLB campaign.
How about the Dodgers? 96 and 55, they're up 5 units for the season. 2.5 weeks ago, they were up 32 units for the season.
They were up more than that if they're high.
Yeah. They're laying big prices too, and they were taking money when they had that horrible streak.
Right. I mean, when you have a team that's laying -$2, -$2.50, -$3 on a day in, day out basis, and they go through an ugly skid like the Dodgers had, yes, you can lose 25 or 30 units in a matter of a couple of weeks. Dodger bettors found that out the hard way. Dodger faders found that out with big smiles on their faces.
Yeah, we should have beachfront property. We should be living in Malibu. What a gift. The Dodgers streak and the Indian streak. Oh, my God. The Dodgers streak's an all-timer, 16 to 17, and taking money and laying big prices in every one. We get the college football up next with Temple and South Florida. Big game breakdown on SportsBIT. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Hey, back on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today. Paulie and Teddy, time for Big Game Breakdown. Always sponsored and powered by Bet Online. Check out the bonus page, sportsbookreview.com, for the latest and best offers to open a new account today. Thursday, ESPN. Temple at South Florida. The Bulls are 19.5, 63 the total. Charlie Strong steps into a great situation. 2013, the Bulls were 2-10, then 4-8, 8-5. Last year, 11-2. Taggart, program on the rise. Taggart took the Oregon job, but he left a solid class and a good team behind. He took Strong inherited 16 returning starters, and 17 starters are seniors or juniors. Second straight week on national television. They have to get going here. They pulled away late and beat Illinois. Before that, they had the game postponed against Connecticut and struggled against Stony Brook. And then they were down 16-0, playing a huge spread against San Jose State on the road, Teddy.
Yeah, but okay. Let's start with some serious history here. Last year, Temple wins 46-30. They were +6 at home in last year's ballgame. In 2015, USF was the home dog. They won 44-23 in that contest. So each of the last 2 years, margins have been decided by double digits, with the underdog winning outright. You talk about Strong walking into a perfect spot, and this is a perfect spot. USF is as good as better than any team in that conference this year. All of those returning starters, the 17 upperclassmen starters, and by the way, they've got a quarterback in Quentin Flowers who's one of the fastest quarterbacks in the nation, and he's also been good enough as a passer. Look at the chart right here with his ability to throw the football downfield. And this isn't a crazy passing game, not a big play passing game, but Flowers, a legitimate dual threat QB. Now, you talk about what happened against Illinois last week. You know, they had the game against Connecticut postponed. They had all of their practices disrupted by Hurricane Irma. Basically, they had 3 practices over a course of 2 weeks, no games during that span. And then what happened against the Illini, they had 14 penalties in the first half. They were rusty as hell. What happened? Well, here's Charlie Strong talking about the rest of that game against the Illini. Quote, "I can't say enough about this football team and just how they responded here tonight. Usually, when you go out a day before a game, it's kind of a walkthrough, but we couldn't walk through. We had to have a real practice." Of course, the Bulls, what they have, 376 rushing yards in that game, 304 passing yards in that game, 3 different running backs with more than 100 yards on the ground. When USF gets going and they have a national TV showcase to do it, that team can look pretty impressive.
Well, tough start for Temple. Remember, they were the darlings. They had the best ATS record in all of college football last year. They lose their coach, Rule. He takes the Baylor job. Their quarterback, Walker, goes to the NFL. So Jeff Collins takes over, former Florida assistant, and they just struggled last week to beat UMass at home. They can't run the ball. Look at this in 2017. Horror show. Armstead, 177 yards, averaging 3.7 yards per rush, down significantly from 5.9. Then you see Hood, Gardner as well, down significantly yards per rush from last year too. And that probably want to slow it down as South Florida wants to play fast and you want to keep Flowers off the field. Easier said than done. So we'll see if they're able to slow the tempo down. We'll get to this game. More on this one coming up. This will be play of the day. Game number 2. Friday, Virginia and Boise State, ESPN2. Bet online number. Some money on Virginia. Boise is 12.54 the total. Return game from 2015 when Boise spanked Virginia 56-14, even though that game was lined as a pick'em. The Boise defense was uncertain entering the season, starting 5 sophomores or freshmen and 15 of the 22 on the 2-deep, either sophomore and freshman. They did a great job against New Mexico, although they caught a break as both quarterbacks were knocked out with concussions. They also was a pretty good job against Washington State, too, until all hell broke loose in the fourth quarter of that one. But they got some bad news as their first team all Mountain West defensive lineman and suspended for arrested for disturbing the peace over the weekend. That's a big blow there. A Boise statement. We're aware of the situation. We take this matter seriously. We will handle it appropriately and internally as we do with all conduct-related issues.
Yeah, so why is the money coming on Virginia? You know, here's Boise. They just lost their, a guy, David Mawa, the guy who was a finalist for the Outland Trophy and the Bronco Nagurski Trophy. We're talking about an elite defensive lineman for this squad, who's now, it's a significant off-field distraction. But it's about Rippon. The quarterback, Brett Rippon's been out. He's still in concussion protocol. He's returned to practice this week. The markets are thinking he's expected to play, but clearly some of this money is saying maybe not. He may end up sharing time with Montel Cozart at the quarterback position. But we got to talk about this Bronco defense because last year, for the season, Boise State only forced 8 turnovers. And you looked at that depth chart. I looked at that depth chart coming into the campaign and said, man, this is a young defense. It's a bunch of underclassmen. They didn't force turnovers last year. I'm not sold on Boise's D. How do you grade the Broncos defense so far? A++. They've been great in every game, and they've already forced 7 turnovers in 3 games after only forcing 8 in the entire 2016 campaign.
Ben Kirk, the quarterback for Virginia, struggled against Indiana and then lit up Connecticut. Maybe just took advantage of a lousy team and program. 39 of 66 versus Indiana for 259. Then 30 of 40 for 455 against UConn. All-time Virginia record for yards in a single game and 7 completions of more than 20 yards. Head coach Bronco Mendenhall, I think he played with a chip on his shoulder. Indiana did have a strong performance against us. We also did not play our best game offensively, nor did Kurt. He never once looked for another reason or something else that he could not control. He owned the performance. He knew he could do better. So I think that was a catalyst. He said on a lot of the deep balls, it was a matter of holding it a little bit longer to see how the routes played out. I felt like I was rushing the throws against Indiana. It was frustrating. I felt like we had so much more out there that we didn't take advantage of, and that starts with me giving those guys chances on the deep balls. I was playing more aggressively, and I think my team needs that. They need me to the guy that they can look to. I was surprised he took this job. He left BYU. What do you think of Virginia? Do you have an opinion on this one?
Well, it's interesting because look at what's happened to BYU since Mendenhall left. Maybe he realized this program is hanging on the precipice. I don't think Mendenhall was a fan of BYU deciding to go back to independent status in football. But here's a quarterback who showed us something last week. Now he's going up against a better defense than he's seen. Certainly a better defense so far this season than he's seen before. And, of course, for the Virginia side, we think of Mendenhall as a defensive guy. He was always a defensive guy. And he's going with this in a situation where it's only his second year on the job. Pretty much his recruits are in place now on defense. There are 6 sophomores or freshmen starting, and 15 of the 22 on the 2-deep defensively are freshmen or sophomores. This is a very, very young Virginia defense heading on the road for their first real road game. Mendenhall knows the settings. He played here many times, but not his team. I worry about Virginia's defense in this ballgame.
Up next, the deep dive. It's early, but NFL offense is off to a historically bad start. We'll back it up with numbers and tell you why next. Plus, the play of the day is we're red hot on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping up on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today. Remember, Thursday and Friday, hardcore breakdown, 4 games, college and pro, the top games. We'll do that every Thursday and Friday during the football season. Time for the deep dive. Not a good start for a lot of teams, and you see number of teams with 1 or no offensive touchdowns through 2 games. 4. Last 5 seasons, number of teams with 1 or no touchdowns through 2 games. 4. Not good. Scoring a total offense down big time. 2015, see this graphic, 22.8 points per game, 352 yards, and 5.5 yards per pass. This year it's down to 20, 322, and 5.2 yards per pass. Let's start here, Teddy. A lot of the blame goes to these offensive coordinators who are terrified that their quarterbacks are going to make a mistake, and half the league is Charlie Checkdown now.
Well, we think about the history of the NFL. Back in the day, you think about your Terry Bradshaws of the world or whoever, back in the 70s, your Joe Montanas in the 80s, those guys threw picks. The NFL has made a big internal decision that turnovers are the epitome of evil. And the Charlie Checkdown helps avoid the turnovers. But as we're going to see in a minute, it hasn't avoided the pressure. So the scoring is way down. And that first stat that you read, let me just go over that one more time. Over the last 5 years combined, there's been 4 teams with 1 or no touchdowns through 4 games. There's 5 teams this year. I'm sorry, 4 teams combined with 1 or no touchdowns over the last 5 years. This year, there's 4 alone. So it speaks volumes. Points per game way down, yards per game way down, yards per play way down, and it gets worse. Look at the running. Last year, 108 yards, 109 yards a game, averaging 4.1, 4.2 yards per carry. Well, so far this season, under 4 yards per carry. Rushing yards are down. That's not it. It's more than that. What do we got? The passing. And the passing, this has been a significant decline, and this is something the NFL really has to worry about. As the elite quarterbacks age, and they've begun aging, and a lot of them are pretty darn old, the elite quarterbacks, once they retire, who's going to replace these guys? In just a 2-year span, and again, we're only weeks in, but in just a 2-week span, we've seen a half a yard per pass drop-off from where we were in 2015.
You know what? It's going to get worse, too, because we're going to lose Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, 3 of the 4 probably soon. And you see, I think half of the starting quarterbacks are around 30 years old. So we're going to lose a lot of good quarterbacks, and then what's going to happen? But to tie it all in with these numbers and what we'll talk about here as well, offensive coordinators and head coaches getting rewarded. Play safe, conservative, don't turn it over, trust the defense. And teams don't practice that much anymore. And the offensive line play is horrendous in the league today, Teddy.
And that's what it comes down to. If you're looking for a reason, you want to point fingers, what is going on with the NFL offenses? There was a big article, was it the Wall Street Journal? It took us a look at it. The Washington Post is talking about it. It's offensive linemen. Let's take a look at the sack percentage numbers for the last couple of years. The pass blocking is worse, all right? And again, you're seeing a dramatic difference this season. We're only 2 weeks in. These numbers will flatten out. But the prevailing trend of poor offensive line play may not flatten out. And when you have a bunch of older quarterbacks that are getting ready to retire, and then you throw in some iffy line play all around, well, all of a sudden now you say, the NFL ratings are down. Everyone's worried. Why? They better be worried. Let's throw this graphic up, and because this is the key point. And we've been talking about the graphics of why this is happening. And look, the rushing's down, the passing down, the sacks are up. This is why. Take a look at this graphic with the Pro Bowl linemen before injuries last year, and go down the schools: Stanford, Wisconsin, Florida State, Eastern Michigan, on down the line. You know what you're not going to find on that list? You're not going to find one Pro Bowl lineman from a spread offense in college. Not one. The college offenses aren't designing linemen and preparing linemen to play in the NFL. And as the spread offenses grow and grow and grow, there are fewer and fewer and fewer elite linemen capable of protecting quarterbacks from nasty pass rushers and opening up lanes for the running game.
All right. Very good. Money time. Play of the day. Red hot. Let's keep it going. Betting number 304. Back to the game Thursday on ESPN. If I'm playing, I'm laying. That's right, Teddy. We're laying it with South Florida. Temple was blown out against Notre Dame. They also struggle at home against UMass. They've lost a lot. They can't run the ball, as our numbers showed earlier. South Florida is right there with San Diego State. And a lot of people think they go undefeated. But they're right there as probably the best team from a non-Power 5 conference. I think South Florida will get it together. Remember, they haven't had a lot of practice time. They pulled away from Illinois. I think they'll pull away late here. We'll lay the 19.5 at home on national TV again. Very important, because they want to get in that New Year's Eve bowl game. We'll lay it with South Florida, and this one look to stay red hot with play of the day. Back Thursday, college football marquee games, and we'll recap everything that happened in Major League Baseball and college football line moves as well on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today and SBRpicks.com. Thanks for watching.